people, my name is Matt and I'm going to be doing a review of hopefully the entire series of Star Trek Discovery. Now, why am I doing this video? The truth is I really enjoy watching videos like these myself, and none of the channels that I follow are doing Star Trek Discovery. So I figured I have an opinion, I've watched Star Trek most of my life, why don't I just make one? Also, as you can see in the back, there's my dog. His name is Luke. He's just taking a nap. I tried to get him to move, but he's being stubborn. So I just watched the first episode and I took some notes. Let's see. Oh, before I get into the actual episode, there was some controversy about the first black woman captain. Actually, she's not a captain, but she is the main character. Like Picard, like Kirk, Janeway, Sisko, and Archer. So what do I think about that? I don't care. And I don't think anyone should care. We already had a black captain. We already had a female captain. The fact that we now have a female black captain isn't a big deal to me. And I wish they hadn't made such a big deal out of it. Because now it becomes, oh, if you don't like it, it's racist and everyone should be so amazed. No, it should be normal that we can have a female black lead. And I feel like they made too much out of it. It became this whole gimmick, almost a marketing strategy. It's fine. I don't care. I don't think anybody should care. And I think we should all move on. Now, another controversy. The name Michael for a woman. Again, I don't care. I don't think people should really care. I think it's a little weird. I've never heard Michael be used for a woman. I have heard Mikkel, but you know, whatever they want to do, it's their business. I don't care. So let's get into the actual episode. It starts out with these Klingons just talking amongst themselves, and I have to say, this whole show has so much Klingon and so much subtitles. If you don't like subtitle movies, then you're not gonna like Star Trek Discovery because they're talking in real Klingon all the time. Now, I don't really mind having some real Klingon, but I liked it the old way, where they generally speak English, and then sometimes there's some Klingon that seem more comfortable. Now I have to read and it feels a little awkward, but I don't know, maybe some people like that. It's not a huge deal for me. So then we move on and they're talking about 24 warring houses. And sure, that makes sense. But what doesn't make sense to me is that nobody has seen a Klingon in almost 100 years. Even the fact that the main character's parents were killed by a Klingon raid suggests that Klingons are around. And the whole thing about, oh, we haven't seen a Klingon in 100 years, it just doesn't feel right. You know, it's like I'm an American saying, oh, I haven't seen a Canadian in over 100 years. It's like, really? Really? I haven't seen a Canadian in that long? So then we move on. They're talking about their culture and how they're going to lose it. And it just made me think of, you know, political problems today. Are the Klingons now Klingon supremacists? I remember in the old days, Klingons were conquerors. They weren't worried they were going to lose their culture. Their culture was just to conquer other races. But I guess now they're really worried that they're going to lose their own culture. So they're being driven by fear rather than a desire to conquer. A desire to be warriors. I don't know, I like the old way better. I like Klingons as conquerors, warriors, but this whole, oh, we're going to lose our culture unless we fight back. I don't know, it felt awkward, and I don't know, maybe they're hinting at some problems of today, or I don't know. So then we get to the main character, and right off the bat, she calculates an approaching storm to the second. Now it's true that she's just estimating, but I feel like, okay, this is not data. Why are you estimating to the second? Then there's the fact that she's completely wrong, because within pretty much the next scene, the storm is right on top of them. So first she tries to show off by calculating a storm to the second. Then she's completely wrong, and none of it seems to make much sense. Let's see. Sometimes it's hard to read my own notes. Alright. So while they're walking on this planet, she explains the entire situation to her own captain, who presumably knows what's going on. I mean, what kind of captain goes down to the planet and then has their first officer explain everything that's happening? Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense to me. It just felt like really clumsy exposition to inform us, rather than, you know, a good way to give information. Okay, so we get a view of the aliens on the planet. I have to say, that was some creepy stuff. I actually kind of hope they come back, because they were seriously creepy. They remind me of the Lost in Space movie. I think it's a remake. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a remake. And there's this one guy who gets bit by a bug, and then he turns into some kind of huge super bug, and he has this creepy cloak, and I don't know, it just reminded me of that, but I actually liked it. I like creepy stuff. Right, then I have a note saying just number one, really? Look, I don't remember, I haven't watched the original series that much. But I have watched TNG a lot, I have watched Deep Space Nine a lot, Voyager, Enterprise. I haven't heard anyone use number one except Picard when talking about Riker. I guess my dog is moving, never mind. And I keep getting the feeling that they're trying to make you think this captain is another Picard, except she's a woman and Asian, but that doesn't matter. But it just feels like a cheat. It just feels like a cheat. That was something that we really enjoyed. We liked it when Picard went, oh, number one this, number one that. But to just take it for another character, and then, I don't know, did they think that would engender the character to us? I really don't know, but if so, it didn't work, or at least not on me. Because I don't like that. I don't like it when you steal another character's thing, use it for yourself, and then you're like, oh, what, you like this, right? So why don't you like it now? That's just mean. So yeah, that really bothers me. I don't want other people calling their second in command number one. So now we have this Starfleet ship, which is unable to locate them, but instantly spots the Starfleet symbol. Does that make sense? Because it didn't make sense to me. Like, if they can see that symbol, they can see people walking. And also, look, the way they make that symbol, it looks kind of fake, and sand doesn't really get that dark when you walk in it. No. There's also wind, so why aren't their footprints being blown away? Doesn't matter. It's not that big a deal, but it still seems silly to me. That ship should have been able to find them just fine. Also, they have tricorders, they have communicators. They really can't detect that when they can fly through atmosphere. Okay, well, never mind. We're moving on. Okay, so we get to the intro. I didn't really like the graphics of the intro, but I liked the music. It was calm, soothing. It wasn't quite Deep Space Nine, TNG, but it's good. I like it. It's good music. I thought the whole graphics thing was a kind of awkward. Like, they draw everything and kind of pulls me out of the moment, because it really reminds me that it's a show. But all in all, it didn't bother me that much. So then I have a note that says gorgeous graphics, and I really think that's true, because there were some beautiful shots there of that star, of that asteroid field. I really enjoyed that. It's the same reason I really enjoyed the Passengers movie. I mean, the story was okay in that one, but I mainly enjoyed it for the amazing graphics, especially when you watch it in the movie theater. Then I have a note that says only new aliens, because apart from the Vulcans, I haven't seen a single... Oh, and the Klingons, obviously, which are completely changed. I wish they kept the old look. I don't like the new look, but I don't know. Why was it so important to change it? Klingons look good, right? Is there some reason we had to have new Klingons? But okay. So, on the bridge, I didn't see a single alien I recognized. There's just new aliens. And it's like, why even make a Star Trek show if you're going to invent everything anew? It feels like you're just making money off the IP instead of just doing your own thing. Because if you're not going to stick to any of the old things, you might as well just do something new. Right, then there's the... I guess he's the second or third officer. Yeah, I guess he's the second officer. So he comes from a race where everybody's a coward. That feels stupid. Like, I don't mind a race having a certain tendency, but it feels like this race, everybody's the same. There's no variation, and that doesn't make sense. Not every dwarf is a typical dwarf. Not every elf is a typical elf. I would have much rather seen a guy like, I think it's a Kepian. I wrote it down, but now I can't read my own handwriting, so I think he's a Kepian, and apparently they're all cowards. I would have much rather seen the one that isn't a coward than seeing like the most stereotypical character that doesn't make much sense, because how did he get through Starfleet training? Then you have to show some level of courage. Okay, so we have cowardly Kepians. Apparently every single one of them is a coward. Right, then I have a note saying they don't seem to understand how radiation works, but Star Trek has done this for so long. But if they're going to change things, change this. You can't just calculate, oh, you have 19 minutes of radiation time left. And if you only stay 18 minutes, then you're fine. But if you stay 20 minutes, oh, then you're fucked. That's not how radiation works. Alright, so then we have the scene where she actually flies into the asteroid field. Now I like that. It looked awesome. It kind of makes sense that she would be having fun, because I don't like roller coaster rides, but I know a lot of people who do. And I know some of them would love to go on a ride like that and just fly through an asteroid field. I also like the scene where two asteroids collide and there's this big boom. It feels kind of scary, and I don't know, I just liked it. I thought it was a good scene. Then she arrives to the space station or beacon, whatever you want to call it, and she instantly says, oh, this is centuries old. And I'm just like, how do you know? It's in space. It's in a vacuum. How do you know how old it is? I mean, sure, if you're on Earth, you can determine how old something is by the way it looks. It weathers, there's all kinds of effects, but in space, something can be preserved almost indefinitely. So how do you know it's centuries old? I don't get it. Then she has a fight with a Klingon. It felt kind of awkward. Like, that Klingon just sucked. Okay, so maybe he was just a bad Klingon. That happens. There's plenty of Klingons who just die in Deep Space Nine. I mean, they're supposed to be these badass warriors, but then the good guys are always kicking their ass because Starfleet is the most awesome ever. And yeah, I don't mind that. It's Star Trek, and they're trying to tell a story, so it's fine. But the fight did feel kind of awkward, especially the way he gets killed with his own blade. It's like, dude, you never had that problem where you have to watch out with your own blade? Like, maybe hold it sideways, like the old Bafflet. I don't know. Also, was that a Bafflet, or is it just a new thing? I don't know. Then they talk about their sacred beacon. Why is a beacon sacred? Why? It's never explained. It just, oh, this beacon is sacred. Like most times, things are sacred. They're old and they're pre-flight. This beacon is far out into space, apparently on the edge of Federation and Klingon space. So why is it sacred? What makes it sacred? And especially, look, this is supposed to happen in the Prime timeline, which means Kirk, Picard, all of that as original, which means the Klingons got rid of their gods. The only thing they had was Kahless. And in this show, Kahless seems to be a god rather than the first Emperor. Now, look, it's true that Kahless was divine, but he never seemed to have a religion like he does here. And if it's supposed to take place in the same universe, then why? How did he turn from an emperor who, admittedly, he was divine, but I don't know, something about it just seems off. I think they're trying to turn Kahless into a whole religion. And I know the Klingons always believed in a certain religion, but it seems off and it doesn't seem to fit with the Prime timeline. If you're going to reinvent the Klingons and their belief structure, then just say we're doing a new thing. And it felt kind of like Enterprise, where they didn't even want to admit that they were making a Star Trek show. It's like, do you not have any confidence, or I don't know, but it felt really strange. Yeah, so again, I have a note about how the Klingons only talk about self-preservation. Starfleet is going to take their culture, and oh no, all these other aliens. They're not conquerors. They're just kind of racist. So then we have a flashback to Michael being trained as a young kid. And I just have to ask, why does every new show need to have a Spock that's not Spock? And this is really just about Discovery and Enterprise. Spock was the first Vulcan in Starfleet. That's determined, so you can't mess with that. But then they're like, oh, but what if we have a Vulcan that's not really part of Starfleet, but still part of the crew? Because we need a Vulcan, because we don't have any original ideas. So we have to insert a Vulcan. But we'll just find some way to make sure that we don't, you know, take away from Spock. And this feels like the same thing. Now, I have to say, I actually kind of liked T'Pol. I thought it was good, but in the beginning, it annoyed me the way that she was kind of Spock, but she wasn't. And it's the same here. You know, they want a Vulcan mindset or whatever, but they can't have a Vulcan in Starfleet because Spock was the first Vulcan in Starfleet. So they do this awkward thing where she's trained by Spock's father, and yeah, it feels forced. Also, we never learn why she's being trained by Spock's father. Some more information of her past would be nice. Maybe that's still coming. But yeah, I could have done with some more information, because that seemed really vague. And so her parents were killed by Klingons, and then he took her in, but why? And okay, so that feels kind of like a war story. Then I have a note saying genetic unspooling. I don't know what that is. It does sound appropriately scary, and I don't really mind it. I just wanted to mention it because it seemed like a thing that, like, okay, what's genetic unspooling? And maybe it is a real thing. I didn't study genetics, so, but it sounds scary. So yeah, I have another note about nobody's seen Klingons for 100 years, really. Do you remember in TNG when that Ambassador Kayla, I think, she's like, Klingon civil wars are rarely contained to the Empire. Well, clearly they are. Nobody's seen a Klingon for 100 years. They've just been fighting each other. And In TNG, that makes perfect sense. It makes sense that Klingon civil war spreads out because the Klingons are conquerors and they don't like to, you know, if they see something while they're at war, they'll take it because that's who they are. So yeah, the whole thing that nobody's seen a Klingon for 100 years, it doesn't make sense to me. And what about Michael's parents and her colony being attacked? They saw Klingons there. She's not 100 years old. Okay, so then she explains to her captain what happened. And she says, oh, this Klingon ambushed me. And I'm like, did he? That's not how I remember it. So is she lying, or is it just kind of awkward? Because he didn't really ambush her. Sure, he was suddenly behind her, and then she turns around and she's like, but then he just stood there. And then he attacked her. So it's fair to say that he attacked her. How did he ambush her? I don't know. I feel like an ambush is when you're attacking someone who isn't expecting it. Not when you just stare at each other and then all of a sudden someone attacks. It's fair to say she was attacked, but I don't see how that makes it an ambush. Okay, so then we have the captain who says, oh, retreat is not an option. And I'm like, really? Over a relay? I mean, they came there for some kind of communications relay. You're going to destroy your ship over that? Look, I'm not saying you should just let it be if Klingons invade your space. But you have to be smart about it. Don't just flail around and attack the enemy because they're in your space. No. If retreat is the appropriate response, then retreat. The whole thing about, oh, we can't retreat, this is our space, seems tactically unsound. Then she says, tell Starfleet we have engaged the Klingons or something to that effect. And I'm like, you haven't engaged the Klingons at all. There's just a Klingon ship. Okay, sure, there was one casualty, but it was kind of an accident. When you say we've engaged the Klingons, I'm kind of assuming shots are going to be fired. They didn't know that at that point. They were still trying diplomacy. Now you could say engage means any interaction. I don't know. I feel like once again they're trying to invoke Picard when he said, contact Starfleet and tell them we have engaged the Borg. But that was a completely different situation. In that situation, the chance of combat not happening was really slim. And Starfleet wanted to know, well, I guess they do here too, still. I just feel like this captain is like a knockoff Picard. And that kind of, yeah. Anyway, we're moving on. So then the Klingons have this whole ceremony about who's going to be the next torchbearer. Which is never explained. I mean, it might be in the second episode, but right now I have no idea why it matters who's the torchbearer. Like, apparently the one guy was who got killed. But, so what does it mean to be the torchbearer? Does that mean you're the guy that stands outside and swings a blade badly? I don't know. I would like more information on this whole torchbearer thing. So again, we see that Kahless now seems to not be just a Klingon who was divine in the first Emperor. Seems to be a real religion. A religion that has to do with fire. I mean, Klingons always liked fire, but now it seems to be like kind of the burning god or the red god from Game of Thrones. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, but I feel like even though this show says it's in the prime timeline, it's not going to fit in the prime timeline. There's so many things that seem so awkward. And if you're going to do your own thing, just say that. Just say we're going to do our own thing. Oh well. Okay, so then they have all these covens that protect their ship. In a way, it's kind of cool, but again, there's so little information. Are they doing this with all their ships? Is that just this ship? If so, why just this ship? I don't understand. Nothing is ever explained, so we just have to take it at face value. Maybe it'll be explained in episode 2 or whatever, but I don't know. So then we have the second officer, and he's talking about how he comes from a world with no food chains. Then he describes a food chain. Sure, it's an absolutely simple one, But it's still a food chain. It's like you don't understand what a food chain is. They could have corrected that by just saying, I come from a world with a very small food chain. The only way to not have a food... No. Even if you're the only race on that planet, you're still eating something. So there's a food chain. I don't know. It made very little sense to me. And then there's a conversation with the Admiral, who seems to be just that Admiral that you're supposed to dislike because he's being a jerk for no real reason. But you know, Star Trek has done that before, where they like to portray admirals as jerks, but the captains are always the cool people. So then, the main character, Michael, seems pretty racist towards Klingons, because he's constantly stating that there's no way to negotiate with Klingons. And look, she has a certain point. Klingons are warriors, they're dangerous, but to say, oh, there's no chance of negotiation, that's crap. We know that's crap. There's peace with Klingons. There is plenty of negotiation with Klingons. At least DS9 Klingons. So yeah, it really seems to be a character flaw of hers. I like the captain, and I like that she shuts her down, because that doesn't feel like Star Trek. Let's see. Yeah, so to drive that point home, she's a Starfleet officer, and she's basically saying, yeah, I don't believe in peace with these beings. It's like, did you even pay attention in Starfleet Academy? What Starfleet Academy did you go to? Star Trek is supposed to be about, you know, this kind of utopian federation where people are good and honest and they're the good guys, but she doesn't seem to be the good guy at all. I think I have a note about that later on. So then the Klingons use their beacon to summon other Klingons, and it's like, okay, I guess it's a special deal, so I'll buy that. But then she's like, oh, maybe the Klingons are calling for backup too. And I'm like, why would the beacon make you think that? Don't they have comms? Don't they have subspace communications? Like, even if they were using the beacon to call Klingons, why would you guess that they were doing that instead of just using subspace comms? They can do that. They're not stupid. Not Pakleks. Paklets? Well, you know, the ones from TNG that are like, we like things that make us go. So then she goes to talk to Sarek, showing again that subspace communications are definitely a thing, because apparently he's on Vulcan, and he already saw this new star in the sky, which is like, do you not understand how light works? It'll take a while to get there, unless he's like on the next planet over. Okay, so, okay, whatever. So he knows instantly what's happening. Then she says she killed a Klingon, and Sarek is like, well, they killed your parents, so it's only fair. And I'm like, really? Really? There's just no morality? There's no story about, well, I hope it wasn't an act of revenge. No, it's like, oh, that's fine, you know. They killed one of you, so let's kill one of them. And then we get to the part that really, really bothers me, and it's the Vulcan hello. Like, all the time in Star Trek, we are shown that the Vulcans are logical beings, but they're also kind, and they're also moral. And this show just completely tossed that out the window. Because the Vulcans, from what we hear, lost one ship, and then went instantly shoot to kill, shoot to kill, shoot to kill. Just anytime you see a Klingon, just kill him. It's like, you don't even know if that's a transport with children and babies on it. No, whatever, just shoot them. It's like, no. This doesn't feel like Vulcans. It feels like cold, emotional robots. They're kind of evil. So yeah, that really bothered me. It went against how I saw the Vulcans in Star Trek all my life. I don't know. And the problem is, it's not just Sarek. Like, if they had made Sarek this cold jerk, I could be like, okay, so I guess Sarek's a jackass, but no, the whole race went along with this. Like, okay, just shoot to kill. Just kill them always. Doesn't matter, women, children, whatever. Kill them all. I kill them all. Even the women and the children. They're like animals, and I killed them like animals. Okay, so that's Star Wars, but yeah, that really bothered me. So then we move on, and it's like, oh, we are wildly outgunned. It's like, why are we always wildly outgunned? Well, does the enemy always have to be so super badass that we really have no chance? Because it doesn't make it more exciting. Like, if you had just said that their weapons are more powerful, or they have a slight edge, that'd be fine. But why do you always have to be wildly outgunned? Can't there be some moderation? Okay, let's see. So I just have a note here that says shoot to kill, shoot to kill, shoot to kill. Because that's the only thing that character wants to do. Then I have a note saying, main character, now the bad guy. Because she shoots on a ship that never attacked them. Well, I guess the shot doesn't go off, but she intended for the shot to hit those Klingons and possibly kill them. So it's like, okay, so now the main character is the bad guy? That's not fun. That's not Star Trek. I don't know. And then she's like, oh no, I'm trying to save lives. And it just reminded me, in a kind of bad way, of this episode of TNG where this Romulan threatens Picard, and he says, think of all the people on board your ship. And Picard is like, if the cost is just, they are willing to give their lives. And here it's like, oh no, we have to save every life. And look, of course you want to save every life possible. But not by completely compromising your ideals and the ideals of the Federation. Can't you just... feels like this character doesn't belong in the Federation at all. Okay, so then I have one last note, and it's a little bit nitpicky. It's not a big deal. But every Klingon arrives at once? Really? So, what happened here? All the Klingons saw that beacon, and I guess they were all at Kronos, because they all arrived at the same time. So either they all saw the beacon, instantly jumped in their ships, and they're like, go, 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 without even thinking about it. Or these warring factions saw the beacon, and then they were like, hey dude, what are you doing? You going? I'm thinking about going. What about you? Yeah, let's all go. Okay, okay, we'll go. Come on. And then they go. It's like, why not just have one ship or two ships appear and then be like, oh, there's 50 more on the way? That works, but it also makes sense. Okay, but, you know, that's kind of nitpicky. It's not a huge deal. It's just something that makes me go, really? These warring houses all arrive at once. Okay, so that's the end of the episode. How would I rate this? I guess I'll give it like a C+. It had some interesting moments. I kind of want to see where it goes. There's a lot of stuff that I hope will be explained. Maybe a B-. Look, if you look back, I don't remember the first episode of the original series, but I know Encounter at Farpoint, The Emissary, The Caretaker. None of these are really amazing episodes, and they still produced pretty good shows. So, I'm willing to give it a shot, and I do hope that the second episode explains a lot more. Because it feels like there's a lot of gaps, and honestly, I really don't feel like this show is going to fit in with the Prime timeline. They should have just done their own thing, then a lot of these things could be more easily explained away. So, thank you for watching, and maybe I'll see you next episode.